For the first time since a trusteeship began, the headquarters was to be located within the territory. Saipan was to be the new seat of government for the trust territory. For a time, headquarters had been in Hawaii, then for years it had been in Guam. Now it was situated in a spot that would be renamed Capitol Hill, the former naval training site. The remaking of the trust territory would begin with the schools. In 1963, the first phase of a crash education program was in full swing. It called for replacement of the worst of the old elementary schools with modern concrete buildings. During the next 2 years, over 500 new cement block classrooms were built, along with 250 new homes to house the American contract teachers who were to be hired to bolster the staffs of these schools.
There was a lot of interest in having the schools. And in fact, we got funny constructions. We were told not to learn the local languages. We were supposed to push English so much. So I invented curriculum. I took the kids for walks in English. I played ball with them in English for PE.
These early contract teachers stayed for 2 years at a time, and they paved the way for the next phase of the new frontier.
I have today signed an executive order providing for the establishment of a Peace Corps on a temporary pilot basis. We will send Americans abroad who have skills in teaching, agriculture, and in health.
Peace Corps volunteers were more than just teachers. By living and working at the village level, they were the embodiment of Kennedy's vision to capture hearts and minds.
To the people on these handfuls of coral and sand, the United States has sent money and technical know-how. For here, too, America shoulders a responsibility.
By 1966, there were 400 Americans teaching English and social studies, even in some of the most remote parts of the territory. Meanwhile, the old intermediate schools were expanded into full 4-year high schools in all the districts.
Well, we were running on Hopwood Junior High up until the late 60s. And they took over Aquonset Village, I guess it was, where Marianas High School is now. They made that the first MHS.
Dozens of new schools sprouted up around the territory. Often supplies were provided by the government, while manpower was the responsibility of the community.
I remember, I was with the first class that went to Outer Island High School, and everything was done by students. So we built one big, long building that accommodates 6 classrooms. And it took us iron. I know we didn't have class for one whole week. We were working on that building. We had the usual curriculum, math, biology, chemistry. It must have been kind of exotic, because here is in Unity, out in Unity, those young men running around with tools.
Secondary education was now available to many more students than ever before. In just 4 years, between 1962 and 1966, high school enrollment skyrocketed, from 200 to 2,500. A high school education would no longer be the privilege of just a few bright students. Improvements were being made in health services, too. Hospitals were rebuilt or renovated, and new dispensaries were opened.
We have a new hospital in Truk, and planning is completed for another in Pohnpei. These projects are facts and no longer dreams. By coupling the human resources of Micronesia with American financial and technical assistance, we can meet the aspirations of the Micronesian people.
With all these improvements came a sharp swing to centralization. This was a radical departure from past policy. Control of the village schools and dispensaries, which formerly rested with the municipalities, would be transferred to the Trust Territory headquarters. The central government would now assume responsibility for the maintenance of these schools and for the salaries of all teachers. With the ambitious new programs and expanded administration, the U.S. had to increase its appropriations to finance the Trust Territory.
Now this calls for money, and we do not have the money.
Working together, we have launched an accelerated program which succeeded in raising the annual authorization to the current $6 million a year level.
The United States is subsidizing them now at a rate of about $15 million a year.
$20 million!
A whopping $33.6 million.
And funded projects of almost $40 million.
From 1970, the yearly operating budget for Micronesia was 10 times what it had been in the early 1960s. From $6 million, it jumped to $60 million.
Here, a lot of people saw it as, well, this is a good development. We're finally getting the attention of the United States. It was the more radical thinkers, I guess, who said, uh-oh, what's going on? There seems to be some kind of baiting going on here. There's this sudden change in attitude can't be, it would be imprudent to think that it's all in good faith. So there was a lot of suspicion about what the true intentions of the United States were at the time.
For me, what it meant was the United States is going to take care of, pay more attention. And here's an example, education. There were more scholarships. The presence of American personnel was built up visibly. Better teachers, public works. And I saw opportunities for Micronesians to broaden themselves by going abroad.
For better or worse, the U.S. was to take an active role in the development of its Trust Territory. America's neglected islands, as a magazine article referred to Micronesia, would be neglected no longer.